This tutorial is a super highly requested one where I'm going to show you exactly how to get started with hand lettering using your iPad and Apple Pencil. All my best tips and tricks are coming right up. Hey and welcome! I'm Karen from iPad Lettering and I'm bringing you the best tips and tricks about anything iPad related. On this channel I want to help you get the most out of your iPad, whether that is lettering or art or getting your life organized. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And to make it a little bit more convenient, you can also turn on notifications by clicking on the little bell icon. Maybe you got a new iPad recently, or you might have had your iPad for a little while but you're not quite sure how to use it for lettering. In this tutorial you will learn step by step exactly how to get started. I'm going to show you number 1, which app to use, number 2, which brushes you need, and then of course number 3, I will teach you the best way to practice your iPad lettering to get really good at it really quickly. This tutorial will also be useful if you are familiar with brush pen lettering already, because there are a few little gotchas when it comes to iPad lettering. I really wish I had someone teach me this when I first started. I made so many mistakes, it's ridiculous. But the good thing is that I can now teach you a much better way, so you'll make progress much quicker than I did. In the last few years, my lettering practice sheets and Procreate brushes have helped thousands of people make beautiful lettering art, so I'm very confident that you will be able to do it as well. If you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to give you access to my free iPad lettering starter kit, which contains the practice sheets I'm about to show you and also an exclusive Procreate brush that you can use to get started straight away. Okay, now let's have a look at all the things that you will need. First, of course, an iPad and an Apple Pencil. You can use any iPad that works with an Apple Pencil. And the reason why I'm saying Apple Pencil is because I don't really recommend any other stylus than the Apple Pencil. It's the one tool that will make all the difference when it comes to iPad lettering. If you need a little more help deciding on an iPad, I've done a couple of reviews of the different iPads, which I'm going to link to in the description of this video. And then what you will need as well is the Procreate app. I'm constantly researching and trying out different apps for hand lettering on the iPad, but Procreate is by far, hands down, pinky promise, the best app for hand lettering on your iPad. It's not a free app, but for all the functionality it has, it's very affordable. I mean, you just spend a considerable amount of money on your iPad, so spending $10 on Procreate is not too bad. You won't regret it, I promise. And that's it. Are you ready to practice? Put the paintbrush emoji in the comments if you are. Okay, so the big mistake I made when I first started lettering is that I didn't start with the basics. I just jumped in head first trying to write letters. While it turned out okay, in hindsight I think I would have been so much better off doing some rules first. It's like learning how to swim, right? You don't just jump into the pool and start swimming laps. You learn the different components and the technique first. So that's exactly what we are doing now. To help you with practicing these basic strokes first, I'm going to give you a couple of free practice sheets and also a really nice brush to practice with. Using the right brush can make a big difference. There's 8 basic strokes that we are going to practice, which will help you immensely getting started with your iPad lettering journey, because they form the components of each letter. Once you master these basic strokes, it's really just a matter of putting them all together to form your letters. You might have practiced your strokes with a brush pen on paper before, so you'll notice that the strokes we're practicing on the iPad are a little bit different. Although using the Apple Pencil on the iPad is very similar to using a brush pen, there are a few tiny differences which will drive you crazy when you first start. That's why I want to make sure you have a strategy to overcome those little frustrations by practicing the basic strokes I'm about to show you. Alright, so the first thing I wanted to show you just quickly is how to hold the Apple Pencil. I actually don't think it matters too much. I really think these pencils are very similar to a brush pen or just a normal brush, but there's a little bit of a difference. So this one here is the first generation Apple Pencil and it's round, so you can just hold it anywhere you want. And then the second generation Apple Pencil has got this flat side here. And I've been playing around with this for quite a while actually, and I tend to hold it so that my index finger is on the flat side, and this is giving me a really good grip. But you want to play around with this and see where it sits best in your hand. So you might want to swap around having the flat side on your index finger or maybe on your thumb. That could be a good idea as well. So this is definitely worth trying out, how to hold the Apple Pencil. And then another thing I recommend is that you don't hold it too far back. If you hold it too far back, it'll be really difficult to put pressure on your iPad. So I would just hold it sort of a little bit further up. And you'll see me holding it just the way I naturally do once I'm going to show you the practice strokes. Alright, and because this is the 3rd gen iPad Pro 12.9, the 1st generation Apple Pencil is not going to work, so I'm going to put this aside, and then we're going to use the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. Now the first thing you will need to do is make sure that you have the right brush selected. So the practice sheets come with an exclusive practicing brush, so let's make sure that we select this. And let me just see where I have it, and there it is. It's called Strokes Practice. So make sure you've got this selected, and then of course you can choose any color that you would like to practice with. And I like practicing with bright colors, so let's just choose a bright pink color. Let me show you how these practice sheets work. So this is the first sheet, which has 4 basic strokes, and then there's also going to be another sheet with another 4 strokes, and the templates have been set up the exact same way. When you open that layers panel, you will see that we have 3 layers here and also the background color. So the grid layer and the practice strokes layer have got this little lock symbol, and the reason why they have that is that so that you don't accidentally overwrite these layers. You can turn the visibility of these layers on and off like this. So if you just wanted to have the grid without the practice strokes, you could do that, or then you can turn the practice strokes back on again. And so I always recommend that you practice on a new layer. There is one here already where it says right here, which is pre-selected. So you're pretty much ready to go. The first 2 strokes we are going to practice are the thin upstroke and the thick downstrokes. Once you master these 2 strokes, you are already a long way ahead of the curve. Every letter you write will have thick and thin components. So make sure you spend a good amount of time practicing these 2. So let's start with the thin upstroke, and really all you have to do is just follow the lines and try and cover the guidelines as closely as possible. This should give you a very good feel of how much pressure you need to put on your Apple Pencil to achieve the thin upstroke. So now in terms of pressure, I always like to measure it on a scale from 1 to 10. Where number 1 is barely touching my iPad, and then number 10 is a lot of pressure, almost to the point where I'm making a hole in the iPad. So in this case here, I'd say the pressure that I'm putting on the iPad right now is probably a 2 or a 3. So really just get a really good feel for these strokes and carry on with your practice like this. And you also see that I've actually zoomed in my sheet quite a lot. I think it's a good idea when you first start to make it reasonably big. For one, it's easier to see, but it's also easier to see sort of the wobbly parts where you're not quite sure. So yes, I think having it a little bit more zoomed in is probably a good idea. So now we've finished the first line, and you'll see that we have got all the lines here on this first layer. So what you can do now, if you wanted to start again, you could create a new layer and turn this one off and then start again. But let's now move on to our thick downstrokes. So here it's important that you don't go too fast, and just really get a feel of how much pressure you need to put on the iPad with your Apple Pencil. And again, same as with the thin upstrokes, just try and follow the lines and try and cover all the guideline that's underneath like this. Now before I would have said that I had a pressure of between 2 and 3 on the Apple Pencil, and for the thick downstrokes I would say the pressure that I'm putting on my iPad is probably a 7. So I'm pressing down reasonably hard. And then again, as before, we're just going to carry on practicing our strokes. And really the key to making these strokes nice and even is to go very slowly. Alright, that's the thin upstrokes and the thick downstrokes. Now let's create another new layer and then carry on with a slight variation of the thick downstroke. I think it's a really good idea to practice it this way as well, because one of the things that can be really tedious with iPad lettering is getting the end of your stroke right. By practicing this stroke, you will develop a feel for the ending of the stroke so that you can make every letter look beautiful and consistent. So again, with this stroke in particular, you want to try and go quite slowly and follow the line quite precisely just to get a feel for how to make the stroke. And you'll see here also that I'm not creating these little endings so much. It's actually the brush that creates those. If you find it difficult to make these exact endings, you might also like to try holding the pencil maybe a little bit different. Maybe just try some different angles to see how you can create those endings. And you see, if I tilt the pencil a little bit more, it makes it a tad easier to get those nice consistent endings on the stroke. And again, we're just going to follow all these strokes to the end. And then again, if you're not quite comfortable going freehand just now, you might want to repeat the tracing. But if you're happy, then you can carry on, and then you can do freehand as well. So you'll just carry on with the same type of stroke all the way to the end of the line. Alright, then let's create another new layer, and now we are moving on to our overturn stroke. So the overturn stroke is a combination of the thin upstroke and the thin downstroke. And the tricky part here is this transition where we're going from thin to thick, and really the key here is, again, is not to go too fast. So we're starting with the thin upstroke, and then don't start putting the pressure on too soon. So you pretty much only want to start putting pressure on your pencil once you kind of get to this point here. So I'm going to show you again. So very thin here, and now is when I'm starting to put the pressure on. I'll do it again, and now you want to put pressure on. And I also recommend that you just carry on with the whole line of strokes, even if you make a mistake or if you don't like, I don't like these ones too much, but rather than undo and redo, I would just recommend that you practice again. So if you're not happy with the result of the practice that you've done here, just create a new layer, turn this one off, and then just start again. So you can do the same thing again, starting from scratch, so that you get into a really nice rhythm. This is really all about practice. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will get with these strokes, and you'll notice that the second time round you'll already notice a massive improvement over the first time. Alright, now let's carry on with the fourth stroke. So I'm going to go back to the gallery, and I'm going to load my other practice sheets, which has another 4 different strokes here. So let's make sure that we are on the right layer, and we are. And now we're going to practice the underturn stroke. So this one consists of a thick downstroke and then a thin upstroke. It's very similar to the overturn stroke, except that you're starting with the thick downstroke. And again, make sure that you're going really slowly, and then take the pressure off when you get to around this part of the stroke here. So these are our underturn strokes. Now the next stroke on our list is the thinning loop, and this is a bit different from how you would practice this normally, but I find practicing this particular stroke more beneficial, and it's also a little bit more fun. So let's create a new layer again, and then create these little loops. So this is starting with a thin upstroke and then finishing with a thick downstroke, and then the end is a thin upstroke again. So you're kind of combining the thin and thick strokes in a different way again. So only light pressure to start with, and then once you get around the corner is when you put the pressure on, and before you get back around, that's when you take the pressure off again. So I probably only start putting the pressure on when I'm here. So this is more pressure, and then I start taking the pressure off when I get to this place here. Now let's just do this again. And again, it's very important that you go nice and slow. And this is one of these letter forms that I actually really like myself. So I do practice this a lot, just because I think it's a really nice kind of motion. Alright, these are our ascending loops. Now moving on to the descending loops. And again, I like to teach the stroke a little bit differently, with a little flick here at the top. It just gives your letter a little bit more energy, and it also improves the flow of the stroke. So let's create a new layer again, and then see how we can practice this. So this starts with a thick downstroke, and then we're going to do an underturn and finish with a thin upstroke. Now let's try freehand as well. And of course, again, if you're not quite comfortable trying freehand, then definitely try tracing over the guides one more time. All right, and then last but not least, let's try some oval. Now, the ovals are actually really hard to get right, so don't expect to get them right first time. You might need to trace over the guides quite a few times before you feel comfortable trying them freehand, but let's just see how it goes. So with the ovals, I find it easiest if you start here at this part here where it's really thin, and then you go around and then you finish here as well. So let me show you what this looks like. So we'll start here thin, and then thick downstrokes, and then finish with a thin upstroke again. So start here and then thick downstroke, and then try and meet the stroke again where it started. And you can see even I'm not always perfect, so this is definitely a stroke that you want to practice a lot. But once you get the hang of it, this is actually really satisfying to do this as well. You just have to make sure that you're going really slow. So now let's see if I can do a freehand one. So thick, thin upstroke, coming down thick, and then finishing thin. So now I didn't match it properly, so let's try again. All right, so that's much better. Yeah, so now I'm getting into a rhythm. So you can see once you start creating these for a little while, you'll get into a rhythm, and then you'll find it'll get much easier. And that's really why I don't recommend undoing the strokes. You just try again, and you just carry on with your strokes. This one's a wonky one. So now what you can do is create a new layer, turn this one off, and then just start again. So definitely using the guide is a very good idea until you feel really comfortable with these strokes. And there you have it. These are all the basic strokes you want to practice to become a master iPad letterer really quickly. The link to my download page is coming up right now. Make sure you grab that and then also watch my video where I'm explaining how to install the files on your iPad. You will find the link for that on the download page. Once you have everything ready to go on your iPad, it's time for you to practice. I recommend that you practice these strokes every day for the next little while to get a good feel for the pressure you have to use with the Apple Pencil and to really master those thick and thin strokes. And then next week I will be back with another video where I will be showing you how to combine all the strokes that you've been practicing and start writing letters. It's going to be so exciting. If you like this video, please let me know by liking it below. Please consider subscribing to my channel and also share it with your friends and family. Comment below with helpful if this video helped you. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week.